Excellent. That's a great first recording, man.
I'm actually thinking maybe we redo it.
Welcome to MyPrivacy.Help with Faris and Gordon. Whatever you do online becomes information stored on someone else's computer. We help you reclaim control of your data, your privacy, your life.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is Faris and Gordon. We are originally from the Bitcoin Basics podcast, but we're bringing you something new today. So, Gordon, first of all, tell us, what is MyPrivacy.Help and why are we doing this?
I was going to ask you that question, Faris, but
okay.
Thanks anyway.
Oh, go ahead.
So for those who are familiar with us, Faris and I are from, as Faris mentioned, Bitcoin Basics.Help podcast. And we've sort of seen the need during the last few years, or even the last 10, 20 years even, of this need for privacy. But before we even get into that, why are we here? What are we doing this? I would like to talk about privacy, Faris. And why, for example, the age-old argument is, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. You shouldn't be worrying about government surveillance. You should, give your information away freely. Why are you worried about privacy or concerned about privacy?
Yeah, so for me, it's not so much a concern. I just want my individual rights to be respected, I guess, or actually that's probably not the best way of putting it, but I know that on my phone, for example, like me and someone had a conversation about something, and next thing I know, ads are popping up about that topic on Instagram. Me and my one of my sons were just talking about first role player video games. I mean, I think I'm using the terminology wrong. That's how often I play video games. Now, all of a sudden on my Instagram feed, I'm getting ads for video games, and it's nothing I've actually ever looked up on my phone. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. And just a few other things where I know quite a few people, and this is actually happened to me recently, where unless you change your VPN to another country, here in New Zealand even, there's certain news articles I can't access anymore. So it just seems this is a little bit weird. I don't really post personal stuff on Instagram for this concern. I need to for our business, which we are doing a very poor job of and hoping to improve. But it's one of those things where, okay, I do want to be online. I do need to have a presence online professionally, but I don't want my information being sold, or I don't want to be doxxed essentially. And I just want to know, how can I traverse the information superhighway safely without giving away my personal information?
Perfect, Faris. Good explanation. And I would agree with all of that. Obviously here on this podcast, if you're listening, if you're tuning in, I don't know if anyone tunes in anymore. It's not a radio show. I think people just download it, but this is the first episode. And we won't go on for too long, but I think it's important to talk about privacy because it comes in different forms. And what Faris mentioned is online privacy, protecting your data and information. There are all kinds of different types of privacy, and a lot of that privacy is not online. You have physical privacy and physical security. We're going to try and, I don't know, maybe we will interview some people around that, but we're going to try and stay away from that sort of politics and sort of concentrate on online data privacy. And what Faris mentioned is obviously what I agree with as well. And, the age-old argument is if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. And it's like, well, do you close the bathroom door? If you have nothing to worry about, give me your bank information and password, or give me your email address and password, or your social media or whatever, and let me have a look at it. And people are usually like, well, no, I don't really want to give that away. And it's like, well, it's not that you have something to hide. And that is, I guess, the biggest issue with privacy and what I see. It's the complete opposite. It is that I don't have something that I want to share, not that I don't have anything that I want to hide. So privacy should really be an opt-in. It's my information is private. It is sensitive, and it's things that I don't want to share. So by protecting my privacy, I will selectively give out information. So when I open an account, or when I interact with people, I will give certain information to some people that I trust, and I'll give barely information to other people that I don't trust. So at the end of the day, privacy to me is opt-in. I will selectively choose what I want to share. And that's pretty much it. It's the opposite of being public and online. It's almost impossible nowadays to be 100% private. But I would like this podcast, Faris, to be something that is super practical. And we might interview people and share particular concepts like what is a VPN, but make it super practical so that people can be the most private or as private as they can online.
Yeah, and this is a thing, like you mentioned this in the past, where if you're living in a house and in the evenings, you will close your curtains. People, don't tend to have curtains wide open on a busy street where people can see directly into their house. We actually don't handle that the same way when we're online. We have the curtains wide open and everyone can see everything that we're doing. And I think your browser history, your metadata will say more about you than anyone else can know. And that is your business, we're not here to condone anyone doing anything illegal. That's not what we're about. But your own personal details should be your own personal details. And as you just said, you should share those. You should know what you're sharing, because most people actually don't know what they're sharing. And there are practicalities. So for example, if someone has an iPhone, they take a photo of that, they upload it to the iCloud, it's saved right away. Well, that's really, really handy, but how private is that? And what if you are doing something like taking a photo of your passport? Now, all those personal details. Well, Apple now owns those. So there are practicalities as far as security, and then there's convenience. And we want to find that line where you are still secure, but it's not going to be an inconvenience to your life. So how does MyPrivacy.Help actually do that, Gordon? What are we actually offering here?
We're not offering anything. Have a listen to the podcast, and that's it. But I guess in full disclaimer, Faris, and I am not backwards in saying this, if you head across to our website, MyPrivacy.Help, we have information about how to become more private. And in subsequent episodes, we will look at things like a VPN. We'll look at tools and techniques. We'll also look at something called self-hosting, which we'll get into later. So there are ways and practical ways, technical ways for you to become more private. We would love for everyone 100% to be listening to this, have a look at our YouTube videos, and eventually we'll do some tutorials as well, to be completely self-sovereign. In other words, to completely be able to only selectively share what you want to share. That's really not possible if you're using Gmail, you're in the Google ecosystem or Apple ecosystem, or you're using Dropbox or whatever. It's just not possible. So we would love for people to be able to do that by themselves, and that's great. We understand that that's probably not possible due to time constraints and perhaps technical abilities. So we do offer products and services, MyPrivacy.Help. But essentially what we want to do is to be able to have you guys be self-sufficient. So MyPrivacy.Help, head across there. And also, Faris, if you have a question, and we do this with our Bitcoin Basics audience, we would love to answer questions. Any question basically related to privacy, the more practical, the better. Head across there as well and click the microphone icon and record your question. We'll answer on the show. So I think I've gone on long enough, Faris, and for a first episode, this is pretty good. How about we just finish off with who you are and who I am, and as so that people perhaps who don't listen to our other podcasts sort of get to know us.
Yeah, so this was, so Gordon and I have known each other for 25 years, longer even. And we started the Bitcoin Basics podcast in 2018 because we had people coming up to us asking about Bitcoin. So we started that podcast just to help people buy Bitcoin safely and securely. And then we find once people get into Bitcoin, they're like, well, what's next? So running your own node, setting up a miner, that's still in the Bitcoin ecosphere. But then they start thinking, okay, I'm becoming my own sovereign, running my own bank. But everything else I'm doing online, how do I control that, as you said, the sovereign individual? So that seemed to be the next transition in this journey from adopting Bitcoin to, oh, hang on, I want to control my data online. And we are starting to see that that itch in quite a few people now. So this is where I was talking to Gordon about this, and he's spent a lot of time looking into what is the best self-hosting packages and why you should self-host your own data. And that's something we'll explain in another podcast. So yeah, this was just a natural next step in this journey of financial and now information sovereignty.
Yeah, Faris, and like everything, it's not absolute. It's not you are now private or you are now secure. It's on a scale, and I fear that a lot of people are using tools which are great. So, for example, people are getting away from Google and Apple, and they're moving to other. Well, email's a good example. They're moving to other private email providers, but that's better than using Google and Apple, but you're still trusting someone else. You've sort of moved the problem along to perhaps someone that you trust a little bit more than the previous person. Doesn't solve the problem. So a lot of these tools and techniques, which are good, don't really solve the problem of being more private. So I guess that's what we're about. We're about, basically achieving true privacy, and true privacy is really being in control of your own data. And if your data is on a third party, then you're not private, you're not in control. So that's sort of what this is all about.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share so we can find others like yourself.
So my name is Faris. I am involved in the Bitcoin ecosphere. I'm an educator along here with Gordon. We help investors buy and secure their Bitcoins and Satoshis. My foray into the world of Bitcoin was actually through the world of economics. My history is in international relations. I used to work for some NGOs. I used to teach at universities in Australia, and I was always one of these addictive investors. We'd go to seminars, conferences, on investing in a multitude of things. I used to do up properties in Melbourne. Then I got into full-time trading, Forex, commodities, and indices, individual equities. And I remember Gordon telling me about Bitcoin. And at the time, I just did not have the bandwidth in my brain to deal with it. And then a few years later, I came back into it. And whereas Gordon was really excited about the tech side of Bitcoin, I was excited about
this is not Bitcoin. This is MyPrivacy.
Yeah, it's about me.
Okay.
My history. So we started Bitcoin Basics podcast, and I've just been learning a lot more from Gordon. So he got me into Bitcoin and that side of things. And then we started looking into the tech side. Gordon and I have always had these disagreements. I've always been an Apple guy because I find their user interface so seamless. And Gordon calls it a white collar prison. And to him, he talks about the trade-off between security and convenience. But what I've been finding these days is I'm more and more concerned about how the interactions between me and my devices. It seems my devices are listening to me because I get notifications of products I didn't even search, but conversations that I had. Just the fact that things like your phone will know where you are every day if you're using the navigation. I think I even read somewhere recently that one of these robots that goes around and clean your houses, the vacuum robots, will actually take a blueprint of your house and then sell that information on to the manufacturer, who then sell it to marketing organizations. So it just seems like we are becoming more and more a product, and I'm just uncomfortable with that. Who I am online is a big part of who I am, and I don't want that information really readily available to anyone.
We are the product, Faris. That's a very good point. And that we have several identities. There's the offline Faris, there's the online Faris, and probably 5 other identities. Oh, what were your email addresses that from the other day? There was I am Faris Batman at gmail.com. And what were the other ones?
I have no idea. That's news to me.
Okay, no, maybe I'm getting confused. No, there was an episode we talked about email. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm Gordon.
I don't think that conversation was with me, man. Either you know someone else called Faris, or you dreamt that one up.
It was definitely a previous episode. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My name's Gordon, and I won't reiterate what Faris said. My background is in computing, computer science, IT, whatever you want to call it. And so that's my educational background. And one of the first jobs I did was to work for a small sort of startup internet development company, and had some amazing people there. And I was just shocked. I guess I've always sort of been into privacy and security, especially from an online or computing point of view. But I was just shocked at the amount of data that flew around. And one of my first jobs was a database administrator. And, you know, you'd have information. We worked on one of the toll systems here in Australia, and I had access as an employee. So I had no special privilege or anything like that. I had access to people's credit cards, people's home address, phone numbers, whatever. And that was simply in a text file. Like, it wasn't, you know, secured behind encryption, firewalls, passwords, or anything. It's just all out there in text files. And it's like, oh, this is really great. And so I think a lot of people have this misnomer of all these IT systems being really well protected, and there are buzzwords like encryption and firewalls, and that's just complete nonsense. A lot of these companies have no idea what they're doing. And even the companies who do know what they're doing, the best companies in the world, Google and Apple, occasionally get hacked and have their data and information leaked. So that's my background. That's kind of why I'm interested in privacy, especially online privacy. And my background specifically is information systems. So you have hardware people, you have software people, and you have this thing called information systems. So there's sort of the people who are jack of all trades, master of none. They know a little bit about everything, bit about networking, security, databases, all the above. And that's sort of me. And that's also why I went on to teaching, because I love educating. Didn't like the non-teaching side of it, but I loved educating kids, and that's what we're doing here on this podcast as well. We're hopefully educating others to be more self-sovereign. And in a nutshell, that's my background. I'm a computer geek, and I don't want this podcast to be super technical. Like, we can definitely answer questions like, what is a VPN? But I want it to be Faris, and we'll have people, you know, on the show and interview them. I want it to be super practical. So let's go beyond what is a VPN to how to use a VPN, why should you use a VPN, and more importantly, how do you set up your own VPN? So that's sort of where I want to get to with this podcast.
Cool. Thank you, Gordon. Well, yeah, I'm, like I said, when you first came up with this idea, I said, well, I'll be your number one customer.
Sure. We'll work out the payment later. Well, I reckon that's a good first episode. We've kept it fairly short, I think. And yeah, guys, if you have any questions or anything whatsoever, head across to MyPrivacy.Help. We've got all our social media icons there. And by social media, I do not mean Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. I mean actual private social media. And ask us a question as well. Hit the microphone button, and we would love to answer the question on the show.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share so we can spread this educational content to others like yourself. Visit MyPrivacy.Help.